Okay, great. I think we will get the ball rolling on the event. First of all, welcome everyone to CCA's latest event for SEN2. That's Cybersecurity Transforming Businesses. Just a brief introduction to myself. I'm Tarun. I'm the events director for CCA. One of our aims here at the Computing and Commerce Association is to keep our members engaged and aware of the current trends in industry. So Cybersecurity Transforming Businesses is a continuation in this trends series that we've had. It kicked off in semester 1 with the future of fintech and the world of UX design. And if you are interested in those topics, don't worry. If you haven't seen them yet, they are recordings of those events are up on our Facebook page. So go and give that a look if you're interested. And I think one of the reasons why we did choose cybersecurity as a trends event is because of how relevant it's becoming, and not only to corporations and governments, but even to us as individuals. I don't think a week goes by where I don't open my BBC app or my The Age app and I don't see a data privacy leak or a cyber attack on Australian businesses or Australian interests. And I guess we hope that by the end of this event, you've gained some insights into the extensive field that is cybersecurity. Before I do introduce our amazing host and MC, just a few house rules. Please put your viewing on speaker view. This just makes it easier to see the person who's speaking at the moment. When the panel is going on, please mute yourselves just so that you don't interrupt the panelists by mistake. And please feel free to also leave your cameras on just so we can see everyone. And I guess finally, if you do have any questions, because this is a Q&A session, a panel session, anything at all, whether it's related to the topics that we're discussing or generally in the broader area of cybersecurity, put them on the chat and our MC will try her best to get them answered. Great. So our MC for tonight is Chimodi Ekanayaka. Chimodi is currently in her second year at Monash, studying a Bachelor of Business and Bachelor of Information Technology. She is one of CCA's in-house cybersecurity majors and enjoys learning about tech and business transformation. Chimodi is also an events officer at CCA and is enthusiastic about innovation, tech, and business. Cybersecurity is a passion of hers, and she hopes to share it with you all tonight. Over to you, Chimodi, to get the ball rolling.
Hi, everyone. So my name is Chimodi, and I'm an events officer at CCA, and I'll also be your MC. I hope you're all doing well, first and foremost, because we're currently in very uncertain times right now. So I hope you're all as comfortable as you possibly can be on this Zoom session. And I'm super excited to get started on our discussion tonight all about cybersecurity and how it's transforming businesses and the way businesses operate. It's estimated that cyber crimes cost Australian businesses around $29 billion every year. And with the headlines in the media surrounding cyber attacks and even the government giving us an outline on its cybersecurity initiatives, this topic is likely to affect you at some stage, whether or not you're involved in this field. And you can for sure read more about this on CCA's latest article, which you may find on our website or our newsletter. Do stay tuned till the final portion of this event, because we'll be covering how you can potentially kickstart a career in cybersecurity, or one around cyber, in a world where cybersecurity is of relevance no matter what you choose to study or pursue in the future. But otherwise, our conversations tonight with our lovely panelists, who I will allow to introduce themselves in a moment, will primarily be broken down into two different case studies. One around how businesses adapt in a cybersecurity context, given the current COVID-19 health crisis, and the second revolving around the protection of personal and customer data in accordance with compliance, which we'll also get into. We'll then touch on some cyber trends and what our workplace might look like in the future. Cybersecurity is one of those daunting fields that most people only have a very surface level understanding of. And I can speak for myself as well, that that until I began studying a bit more about the mechanics of it at university, my level of understanding amounted to all the spy movies I ever watched with hacking and saving the world, basic things. But hopefully our discussion tonight will give you more insight into what the world of cybersecurity is about. I'd like to now allow our panelists to introduce themselves. We have Ray Jardine from VMware, Jodie Vlassis from Atlassian, and Anfisa, who's a graduate with intern experience around the current cyber landscape. So Ray, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure, thanks, Shimodi. So yes, I've been in IT for 20-something years now. I started my career in the 90s as a developer, and I've moved on through a bunch of different roles in development, consulting. I've worked for software vendors for probably the last 15 years, and for the last 10, my focus has been on cybersecurity. So I'm an account manager. My customers include the likes of Australia Post, Medibank, Latitude Financial, Seek, government departments, banks. So lots of big companies, down to some kind of mid-tier companies. So lots of different industries, lots of different business challenges that they need to face day in, day out. And obviously the common thread through all that is cybersecurity. So really interesting part of the industry for me. That's a little bit about my background, and looking forward to spending some time with you this evening.
Sounds great. Jodie, would you like to go next?
Certainly. Thanks, Shimodi. Good evening, everyone. So my name is Jodie Vlassis, and I'm a cybersecurity professional with 5 years of experience in cloud security, governance, risk and compliance, government strategy and policy. Currently, I am a senior trust analyst at Atlassian's security team here in Sydney. As a senior trust analyst, my responsibility is to remove barriers and security issues with customers so that they can become a customer, continue being a customer, or become an even bigger customer of Atlassian. Prior to joining Atlassian, I came from Big Four professional services, so I actually came from Deloitte, where I successfully delivered and uplifted cybersecurity needs for my clients. My career and my work are an intersection of IT, cyber, business and risk, and I've been able to assist customers and clients to develop and implement strategies, roadmaps and operating models, assess current states and develop governance policy and standards for all organisations. I'm really happy to be here, and I'm looking forward to an awesome discussion with you all.
Brilliant. And Anfisa, would you like to give us an introduction?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Shimodi. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. My name is Anfisa. I'm a recent graduate from Monash, and I completed my IBL placement at NAB as part of security infrastructure support team. So my main responsibility is they were monitoring and protection of the servers and network. The servers which will deliver cybersecurity tools and instruments for other teams at NAB, both identity management teams, crypto teams, proxy teams, and many more. My career has started basically 1 month before the whole COVID-19 crisis began. So I experienced a lot, not experienced a lot, but I saw how things were changing and how they were changing to student experience, to fresh graduates, and I can probably talk about the student perspective of future jobs during this whole crisis. Yep.
Brilliant. And I'm really glad that we have such amazing professionals in the field at this event. And I hope that we can have a really well-rounded discussion today. So I'd like to start off with the question, what is cybersecurity? Especially for those who really don't have a clue as to what this is all about. I'd like to hear our panelists' thoughts on how they would describe it in their own words. So I can take, anyone can take the floor. Perhaps, Jodie, would you like to start us off this time?
Yeah, sure, I will. Thank you. So When I tell most people I work in cybersecurity, the standard response I often get is, so you hack computers, or you can hack into someone's email account, right? You know, if I had $1 for every time I heard this, I'd be pretty rich by now. Whilst the stigma of cybersecurity remains, the industry has immensely evolved over the decades. You know, when you look at the evolution of cybersecurity, it's an industry where there is constant and continuous change, and that's something that really excites me a lot. Through this evolution, it's just not just about coding anymore. There are a vast range of cybersecurity roles that are equally important, as well as require both technical and non-technical backgrounds. You know, that's the beauty of this industry, right? We have many areas such as risk and compliance or privacy related roles. There's security architecture, network security, and so forth. So in answer to that question, I guess cybersecurity to me is an enigma that requires, you know, up and rising young professionals like us and you all to continuously educate, guide, and empower customers and businesses and clients that security isn't just about hacking. There's actually a lot more to cyber than just that. Ray, what do you think?
Yeah, look, I couldn't agree more. I think the most important attribute for somebody looking for a career in cyber these days would be an inquisitive mind and somebody who has the ability to be able to think clearly through a problem. The industry is moving very quickly. Technology's changed and continues to change really rapidly. It used to be that security was all about protecting a corporate network. And that was things like firewalls and perimeter defenses. What I used to talk about is the tall walls and the deep moats that keep the bad guys out. But the world's changed. And the reality is we've dissolved the network perimeter. And everybody who's got a laptop or an iPhone or any kind of mobile device that consumes an application or a service from the company they work for, that endpoint, as we call them, that endpoint has become the new perimeter. And there's all sorts of different applications that we consume via cloud services and the like now that have really changed the landscape. And it's made the task of trying to secure a business quite challenging. And really the role of people in cyber is not to say no or deny those kind of work models. It's to provide a business with a safe way to deliver those kind of products and services to their customers and employees. So really, rather than being the traffic cop that says no, our role is more about being the bodyguard that helps get the business there safely.
And I think that's a really nice way to put it as well, because I guess especially in university, you kind of hear all about firewalls and the hardware behind cyber, but the world is changing, and that's something that we'll definitely be going into more detail. Anfisa, would you like to give us a brief description in your own words?
Yeah, first I would like to notice that the good description is it's not only about hacking, and moreover, it's not just about coding. And honestly, nowadays, it's even becoming less technical, I would say so, because we had heaps of teams. We had heaps of teams of cybersecurity, and some are very technical and some are not technical at all, because cybersecurity is not just about protection of the whole system, but it also has this educational factor. That there are a lot of cybersecurity specialists who educate others on cybersecurity tools and everything, which is non-technical role at all. Because, for example, what's the point of protecting the whole system against all possible threats? Not all possible, but a lot of possible threats if one client or maybe one of the staff members will just leak its password somewhere, right? So that part is educational, and cybersecurity is a lot about alerting and awareing and making sure that people are aware of potential problems and threats. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it is that awareness that really defines cybersecurity in a sense. But there's also this sort of trend of we don't know what we don't know, and it's hard to sort of plan for different cyber instances. But definitely what we're getting around here, if I'm rephrasing it correctly, is that this involves a lot of different teams, and it's not just one section that's coding and hacking, which is a common misconception. So if I do move on to our first case, which is all about disruption via the COVID-19 health crisis, what would you say has sort of changed in your business structure? I'm sure Jodie and Ray, you will be able to give a bit more insight into your companies, and Anfisa, about what you have sort of observed in your intern experience. Have things changed, or is it just a myth that that it hasn't actually affected that much in a cyber context?
I might lead off on that one if you like, Shimodi.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly we've seen things change pretty rapidly. I myself used to commute into the city every day and had an office there that I went to in South Bank. I haven't actually been there since the start of March. So I've been working remotely since then. It was a typical office where we would hot desk, grab whatever desk it was when you got in on the day. But already we've been told by the company that when we do eventually return to the office, that the whole place is going to be reconfigured. We will be lucky if we spend a day, maybe 2 days a week there. That's the plan. The office will be more a touchdown place to meet with clients or to prepare for meetings that we might be having with clients. So in IT, most of my customers have gone the same way. The banks, telcos, Australia Post, those kind of companies, their expectation is that people are going to be working from home. Now, as I said, that changes the risk profile for a lot of businesses. They need to extend all of the applications we need to work. In some cases, the computers that we're going to work on, they need to extend applications to mobile devices. And these are all things that, if I look across the entire industry, different companies were in different states of preparedness for that. So there's big challenges there. They're having to change the way they deliver services and do it in a secure way. And at the same time, the bad guys don't have any sort of sense of sympathy. Since the COVID outbreak started for us, essentially late February, I guess it was, we've seen a 148% increase in ransomware attacks during this health pandemic. And the reason for that, quite frankly, is that our adversaries are going to prey on the fact that we are uncomfortable, we're unsettled, we're eager to click on that link to get the next update on, how many cases there's been or how many are hospitalized. And people, when they have that heightened sense of insecurity is maybe too strong a word, but concern, their defenses are down a little. They don't necessarily think before they click on that link. So it's been a really challenging time, and I think that's going to continue for a little while longer. Jodie, what have you seen at Atlassian?
Yeah, so I guess in my opinion and experience since joining Atlassian, I feel that we've done really exceptional work and efforts to ensure minimal cyber disruption for our customers, right? We're always looking to increase both internal and external transparency to minimize disruptions so that our customers can better understand how we've built processes to manage the security of their data. And because we think some customers would be able to reuse some of these processes in their own environment. So for example, we have a really strong incident response process that is built on a combination of our products and several security specific tools that were built actually by the Atlassian security team. So when a customer chooses to deploy on the Atlassian cloud rather than on-prem, we take care of those things like server configurations or patching or, logging infrastructure, incident detection and so forth. And that means we provide many of the security services that an internal security team would otherwise need to provide on their own. And these are all really huge benefits to companies and to customers, and that want to focus on its core business and to efficiently use their potentially limited resources during these tough times. In addition to reducing this disruption to the market, we also believe that privacy is a human right. And we have made some huge efforts to design our products with privacy and security as paramount. We empower more than I think last time I checked, it was 164,000 organizations around the world to do their best work, and which means trust and security is at the cornerstone of our relationships with our customers. So, for example, when it comes to privacy and security and how we've minimized disruption, we've done a few things, like we've provided GDPR, which stands for General Data Protection Regulation, aligned data rights and policies globally. We've established a dedicated team to focus on global privacy and data rights. We've enhanced our encryption for our customers, achieving 100% encryption at rest for all our cloud products. Interestingly, we have rolled out a zero trust posture and universal multi-factor authentication in our global operations as well. So, overall, I think we believe all teams have the potential to do amazing things, and our mission is to unleash the potential in every team of every size in any industry, and in turn help advance humanity through the power of software and business. And we know that a customer's mission is as important to them as our mission is to us, and information is at the heart of all businesses and customers. And this is why, customer trust is at the center of what we do, and why security is always our top priority for our customers.
And it's really amazing to see that that passion shine through as well, Jodie. I think it's really, really important that we understand this health crisis is kind of impacting everyone. It's not just the cyber world, but most definitely the cyber world. And we are having to extend on our capabilities. And I think it's in a way a positive change, because we are more aware of the things that we do need to implement. But it's definitely something that came to us out of the blue. So, Anfisa, would you like to give us a bit of a perspective from a student or like a graduate who's just had a little bit of experience in the current climate?
Yeah, I will first start saying about the change I saw. So honestly, when we all moved to working from home, which started in around March, personally, my team, we got way more work and way more things to do during that, but some projects were cut off. So this crisis changed a lot of things. Firstly, when everyone started working from home, our network, it started to be overloaded. Many people were not able to connect to their internal server because we had like only limited amounts of VPNs, and no one expected that all of a sudden we won't need just 1,000, we will need like 10,000 of VPNs available for everyone to join. And because of that, my team and some other cybersecurity teams, we started working way more. And
it seems that, Anfisa, your connection has cut off a little bit. We will get back to Anfisa so that she can
over the weekends.
Okay. Anfisa, it seems that you cut off a little bit. Would you like to rephrase the last bit of what you said? Yeah, it's fine now.
Oh, okay. So sorry for that. Yeah, I'm not sure where exactly I cut off, but I'm just saying that in everyone's work and home, they became sort of not different anymore. People just wake up and they start working when they feel like working. And I saw a lot of people were online at 9 p.m. They were online on Saturdays or Sundays. But there was a certain challenge. sort of challenges this raised. For example, we have some data centers, and data centers are spread across Melbourne, and we have a couple of offices, and they spread across Melbourne as well. So the problem is we started having this policy that you are allowed to visit only one office, and you can't move in between offices. So like avoid extra movements and extra spread. So for example, one person, if the person gets assigned to a data center, he can't visit another data center, or he had to be in quarantine basically 2 weeks, not visit any data centers and then visit another one. And that brought certain challenges, because what if a person assigned to one data center, but some server broke, there is some problem in a different data center, and there's basically no one who can fix it apart from that one person of that like group of people. And because things, they break 24/7, they don't break just within this time working period from 9 to 5. So I think that increased some problems, that increased that more vulnerabilities happened. That's why we saw that more distribution of services attacks, they started to happen. Because we're very vulnerable for attacker. They know that not many people are available to move across centers. Everyone is at home. No one is right next to the server all the time, and the network traffic is already overloaded. So it's so easy. And that brought all our teams work more, and we had to improve capacity, improve capability of service, add some service, add more networks. And yeah, definitely changed in structure of how we work. I don't know what else. It just basically, it was a certain challenge. Right now it's stable, because it was only like for a month everyone was working very, very hard and very, very tough. But as a student, it was a very tough experience, because I didn't know many things, and then this sort of challenge happened, and all of a sudden everyone expects to work very fast, to work all the time. So again, once again, like you have to stay aware and alert all the time in order to understand what's happening, because it always changes, it always evolves.
Yeah, and I think something that we do tend to forget is that we are all online. We are working on the same sort of bandwidth, and we want everything to happen really instantaneously. But we don't really let the process happen, and yeah, it just goes to show that things are changing, but hopefully for the better in the next few months or so, and we'll see some positive change. But yeah, definitely, I think a lot of people have seen these distributed denial of service sort of attacks because everybody is on the network right now. Yeah, so I think we might just move on to our next question. Should we be reactive or proactive with our approach to cybersecurity? I think that there's a tendency to be very reactive. An attack happens and then everybody swarms towards it and tries to frantically figure it out. What's your take on this? Ray, would you like to start us off?
Yeah, sure, I'll lead off. I totally agree. I think the industry as a whole is far too reactive. And some of the reasons for that, if I kind of wind the clock back a little bit to give you some context, over the years, largely organizations have invested in security for a couple of different reasons. Either it's a regulatory and compliance mandate where, for whatever reason, they have to be compliant with a particular standard, or it's been to address the tactical need of the day. So a new type of threat emerges, companies feel vulnerable, they go and buy another product to address that particular type of attack. Now, what's happened over the years is we've become so overwhelmingly focused on the threat and that outward view that we've really lost sight of some of the context around what is it that we're trying to protect in the first place. So if I have a look over the last kind of 2 or 3 years, all of the venture capitalists who are investing in research and development and new security products and tools and all the money that vendors tip in, about 3/4 of that has been poured into looking at the threat. What most organisations have lost sight of is, what do we know about the applications and the data that we're trying to protect? And how do we use that knowledge to our advantage? Now, currently there's about 3,500 different security vendors out there, and that's pretty staggering in and of itself. But what's happened, because we've been buying to address these tactical needs, is we've bolted on all of these different layers of security around our business and around the applications and data. And it's become so complex that the misconfigurations and the gaps between those products actually contribute to the problem. And because we're really focused on that threat, by default, we're now in a reactive stance, right? We are outward looking, waiting for the threat, looking at vulnerability, and then we respond. So as an industry, one of the big changes that I think is going to come is we need to understand our own unique context a little better. As security teams, we shouldn't be trying to build products. We shouldn't be trying to maintain things in the same way that Atlassian provides services that people can consume and takes away the overhead of having to manage the infrastructure that underpins that. Security is heading in the same direction. People want to consume a service, it's the outcome they're more interested in. And I think if we understand what we've built, if I have think about a typical 3-tier application where I've got a web tier, which is my front end, I've got a middleware tier or an application layer, and I've got a database layer. Today, most of that would run on virtualized infrastructure, so virtual machines. And we should understand, because we built this stuff, what processes should run, what services should run in every VM, the ports and protocols that they should communicate on, and what good looks like. So maybe what we need to do is focus on any deviations from that known good and be a little more introspective, I guess, understand what it is we're trying to protect. And that'll, by definition, almost let us get a little more proactive around how we manage security.
We do just have a question from the audience, Ray, in regards to what you're talking about now. And so it says, as you mentioned earlier, the level of uncertainty causes complacency in regards to security. How do businesses account for psychological or human-centered challenges when it comes to cybersecurity? And anyone can jump in on this if you do have extra insight. But Ray, do you have sort of something you can add to that question?
Yeah, look, it's a really good question. And really, we, the people, are the weakest link in the chain. It doesn't matter how much a company spends on, cybersecurity products and services. Ultimately, the people are the ones who inherently are the most vulnerable. And that's just the human condition. It's not a criticism of anyone. Look, the way the industry is heading, the types of products that we deploy and the way they work is very different from the old days of antivirus and firewalls. More than half the attacks that we see these days don't have any malware in them at all. What happens is when you click on that link or you'd open that document, it's native products within the operating system that get used for bad. So it's good things repurposed. We call it living off the land attacks. But utilities like PowerShell or WMI, which we use to deploy software, these things get used for bad. And modern security controls try to look at those behaviours and understand when something bad is about to happen. So we do need to educate people. We do need to run the simulations, to send the emails that tempt them to click on a link so we can educate them if they don't understand what the risk is. But when those things do get through, it's behaviours ultimately that we look for these days. So I'll give you an example. If I see Outlook open a Word document, well, that's no big deal. That happens every day. If that Word document then runs a macro, that might be a little more of a concern for me. But again, macros are part of Word documents and Excel spreadsheets. That's normal. But when I see that macro start PowerShell or a Windows utility of some sort start to do stuff like read memory looking for usernames and passwords, that's definitely bad. So the products work a little differently these days. And without getting too technical, you know, what we are looking for is signs of malicious behavior. To give you an analogy, you know, the old days with antivirus, it would be like having the mugshot of every criminal that's ever been and looking at your front window to see if they're at your front gate. What we listen for now is the rusty gate that squeaks when it opens, the sound of footsteps on the gravel past your house and somebody rattling on your window or your back door. When you hear those kind of things, that's generally an indication that something's out there, something's not quite right. So the industry changed, but you know, to Jodie's point, more and more we're trying to consume those things as a service. And what cyber's all about is trying to educate the business and understand the right services and how we need to implement them to let the business go about what they need to do safely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you so much for that, Ray. I might just ask Jodie regarding our next case study in regards to how we secure sort of personal and company data in accordance with compliance. I know Jodie has a bit of a background on compliance and we'll be able to expand a little bit more on privacy. How do we protect our private data and what are some means of doing that? Or could you elaborate a bit more?
Sure. So I guess I can explain what is compliance in a cybersecurity context. So, you know, compliance in its simplest form is making sure an organization is basically doing the right thing, right? But compliance isn't just about ensuring to your customers you're doing the right thing. It's you're also doing the right thing consistently. So compliance is about providing assurance to customers that your practices, your security practices, abide by industry and regulatory standards. So compliance is often defined as following the rules and meeting industry-based requirements. And in cybersecurity, compliance, for example, one of many examples is about creating a sound compliance management program that establishes risk-based controls to protect CIA, which it stands for confidentiality, integrity, and the availability of information and data that's stored, processed, or is in transit as well. In saying so, cybersecurity and compliance is not based on a one size fits all, right? Like there's no one standard that sort of fits the mold of everything that that an organization is trying to achieve from a compliance perspective. There are a number and there is a range of different industry guidelines and industry attestations that from a security perspective we try to align our controls frameworks against, so that we can provide that trust and assurance to our customers. And depending on the industry, different industry standards may overlap, which can sometimes create confusion and create more work than necessary. So, from a customer perspective, we here at Atlassian, we understand that customers, need to validate compliance to trust a cloud service provider, for example. We work hard to attain certifications and strive to, adhere to widely accepted standards and regulations to keep customers at ease. We test our operations, our environments, and our security controls using independent third-party advisors and publish these reports. All our reports are widely available, through our Atlassian Trust Centre. If you are all interested in knowing what these reports entail, please, I would highly suggest to go and check out our Trust Centre. At Atlassian, we run our security program in compliance with a range of well-known industry standards. For example, some of the well-known industry standards we've obtained as certifications for is ISO 27000, which some of the most common and globally recognized certifications that address how we evaluate security risks, how we evaluate data privacy regulations, design and implement security controls to mitigate against risks, and so forth. Another example of compliance obligations is when our customers use our products. You know, they are trusting us to protect sensitive and confidential information. And as a company that relies on customer trust and believes in privacy as a human right, we take this responsibility very seriously, and hence why we abide by, you know, GDPR and Privacy Shield regulations. We also understand that a loss of trust could have a detrimental impact, not only to the business, but to our customers, to our brand, and to our future success also. So, you know, we believe that excellent privacy and security practices are required and are foundation and is a foundation for a successful business, and that's why we continue to invest, you know, in areas like data privacy and security, and you know, we have dedicated teams to do that, so that we can continuously meet the needs of our customers.
Thanks so much, Jodie. That was a mouthful, wasn't it? But very, very important to learn more about. And I'm sure Jodie has mentioned some Atlassian sort of guides that you can definitely read up on after this event. And yeah, in the interest of time, I'd like us to sort of talk about some trends and where this cyber space is kind of heading. I'm sure Anfisa can give us a little bit of a understanding on what you've sort of seen in your intern experience, and where the world is heading. What can we look for as students?
Thanks, Chamori. I would say that automation processes, they start having a great, like they take a great part right now in any field, especially in cybersecurity as well. It's not just automation, it's also all this artificial intelligence. It all aims to reduce the human the human work, and start working more on robotics and like make computer do things. It will save a lot of time, and it will help people like cybersecurity specialists and analysts focus on more like other stuffs. So I have definitely seen that in all teams, in my team, in software development team, in cybersecurity team, everyone was sort of educating on automation processes. I mean, patching, backups, they all lead to better cybersecurity and better protection. So I think that students, I know that Monash doesn't offer a lot of courses and units on artificial intelligence, and I think none on automation, at least in bachelor's. So I think that students, if they're interested in security and cybersecurity, it's not just, let's study what crypto systems there are, and what policy rules we can do, and what firewalls are. I think we need to see how we can combine something new like AI, artificial intelligence, and how we can combine it with cybersecurity. I think that's where the world is heading to right now. Not just you knowing how to code some security program, but how to teach a machine how to identify a threat and signal to the human.
Yeah, I might just jump in there, and Fizzy, you are absolutely on the right path there. There's a couple of points you touched on. You did mention about patching and what we call good IT hygiene. That is important on every level, be it you know, government, large corporate, small business, you know, even our own iPhones and computers and everything else. There's a huge number of security vulnerabilities that get addressed by patching regularly. And that is an absolute must do in every context. Your point around AI and machine learning and big data analytics and all of those other things, I can assure you most of the security vendors, they are buzzword compliant. We do all of that. We've all got AI, we've all got ML, we've all got big data analytics and data lakes. And fundamentally, they are changing the game. To give you an analogy, years ago, credit cards, in terms of credit card fraud, a credit card number was worth $20, $30 on the black market. Because for you to identify fraud, you had to wait to the end of the month, get your statement, read through it and go, I don't remember that transaction, and then query it with your bank. Well, these days, what happens with the banks is they're looking at all of your transactions in real time. So if I get out of a cab in the city and the very next transaction is, a fancy handbag in Hong Kong, that's unlikely to be a legitimate transaction for me. If there's a few other things in the middle, like a transaction in an airport and a flight and what have you, then maybe it's legitimate. But we tackle the same kind of issues from a cybersecurity point of view now with tech. We look for odd combinations of things that add up to bad. And really a lot of the heavy lifting is done with AI and machine learning and those kind of things now. So
thanks for that, Ray. I think I might just allow Jodie to say a few things about this as well.
Yeah, no worries. So I guess I was going to say something similar as well. So, I in my opinion, I feel like the next cybersecurity trend, or where efforts will be made moving forward, is around IoT devices and the increased risks of security incidents that surround this space. There are many vulnerabilities that continue to exist in IoT devices, and there's certainly heightened awareness that cyber criminals will continue to exploit these devices, even more so now during this global pandemic. And IoT devices can act as a gateway to larger networks and organizations, but despite these exposures, businesses are still positioning themselves to take advantage of powerful new technologies and made available using IoT devices. Business should proactively identify these risk exposures by using, for example, which we just previously mentioned, machine learning and artificial intelligence, and implementing strong security policies, processes, and uplifting cybersecurity risk cultures to counter cyber risks that IoT devices might carry. And then lastly as well, I also feel like trends around bug bounty programs, which allow organizations to direct targeted rigorous testings for business critical assets, will soon become more known and common as well. There are still, the traditional penetration testing programs that assist businesses to focus on, the compliance related assets or improve their security posture. But, with bug bounty programs, this enhances businesses' ability to prevent attacks and the ability to predict an attacker's next move, for example. And with companies, for example, like BugCrowd, they help organizations stay one step ahead of the game. And with dedicated teams around the world, they provide real-time and continuous testing of an organization's system. So, yeah, that's where I sort of think that trend's going to go, hopefully, in the near future.
Yeah, and I think that's really interesting because it's really easy for us, especially looking at it from a university student standpoint. AI is a term that we've been throwing around for a while now, but it really comes into the picture and into your own life when we talk about IoT. So definitely some of these elements are becoming more and more integrated into our lives, and we don't really realize how much cyber security is actually involved in this, and definitely all the vulnerabilities that could be attached to this and the way that they could be exploited. So yeah, I think that's definitely an interesting perspective when it comes to the next wave of where cyber is heading, and we don't really see it as much, but it's definitely there. Yeah, so if I may, I think we should sort of talk a little bit about sort of career pathways and career advice for students. Do you need to have coding experience to be in cybersecurity? Do you have to be a super amazing hacker? I think hacking in general has kind of a negative standpoint at some points, but I think hacking could also be a good thing, and people don't really realize that hacking kind of has two sides to things as well. You have hacking to figure out where the vulnerabilities are and to find out the exploitations, but you also have hacking that's obviously trying to exploit. So yeah, what does it take to be in cybersecurity? Anfisa, would you like to give us a little standpoint to start off?
Yeah, so I definitely don't think that you need to be some great hacker. Honestly, as we said at the very start, that cybersecurity is not about hacking. Hacking is just a small part of it. And with the coding, definitely no. I mean, you need to know the technical aspect, not the coding part, but the technical. You need to know how, like, what is cloud, or how is network, like, how does network work? Some sort of basic not basic, like good understanding of the whole infrastructure and architecture. But the good thing about basically any technology is you can never know everything, and no one expects you to know everything. So once I joined NAB, the program, I basically have done already all the necessary units in university, and but I've realized that those units, all those coding, they were useful, but university teaches you to learn, basically. So once I joined, I didn't know anything, like anything my team did. There were assets I've never heard about. I'm not sure if anyone heard. There was FireEye, F5, Checkpoint. I've never heard anything about that. I didn't know how to deal with those at all. And I thought maybe there was a lot of coding involved, but overall, I did maybe 5% of coding, and that was maybe some shell scripting. Yeah, so like if someone is interested in cybersecurity, maybe can have a look at shell scripts or like basically Linux stuff. This is really important, I will say. But apart from that, no. If you join cybersecurity, if you join that field, you should just be open to learning. And I'm pretty sure that like you will get experience yourself. You will learn everything. Other people will teach you. And no one should be worried that you don't know something before joining. I didn't know anything. I thought I know something, but then I joined and realized that I don't know anything. But then gradually, you just get a hang of it, and everyone is very welcoming in the industry. So.
Yeah, and Anfisa, how did you come to find out about your internship? I'm sure a lot of people are curious.
Yeah, that was part of IBL program, which Monash offers. But I'm pretty sure that nowadays many companies have graduate programs. And for graduate programs, during the interview, because I talked to like other graduates, and the questions, they were not even technical, like they were not even that technical. You just Google graduate program and then the company you wanna like, try. So, and I'm pretty sure that everyone can find. But yeah, Monash IBL program gives very valuable experience, and I encourage everyone to apply, whoever is eligible. It's amazing.
And what about sort of certifications and going off of that?
Yeah. Basically, in security, I've realized that university doesn't teach you everything related to security. It teaches some very, very basic things. And once I joined NAB, I started talking to other people working there. And I obviously looked up them on LinkedIn, and I saw that they did some certifications, and not that they had some certifications, and I started talking about those. And I've realized that if you want to be a technical security specialist, like technical side of it, it's very beneficial for you to get those certifications, because university degree itself doesn't not that it doesn't matter, but it doesn't contribute that much. So I had a bit of a talk, and currently I'm working towards acquiring Security Plus certification, and then my next step will be SEH, Certified Ethical Hacker. And after that, there is the whole list of all certifications, and especially for people who are interested to become a penetration tester, that's really, really important. And the good thing about it is university gives you a good base knowledge related to that, but you can start studying for those certifications even while you're right now in uni. I actually regret that I haven't started studying for them early, because there is nothing too hard about those.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm sure that a lot of people listening in right now can definitely do a little bit of research about these kinds of certifications. I'm sure there's a question for Jodie in particular. Could you elaborate more on career opportunities in network security? And I know that you've asked to sort of elaborate on that a little bit more, but is there something you could perhaps talk about?
Yes, so it's a really good question. I think what I want to sort of start with, and I think Ray might agree with me on this as well, is, when it comes to technical and non-technical jobs, right? Do you need to have a technical background in some of these roles? It's not a simple yes or no, right? And it depends on the specific job you have regarding cybersecurity. Programming knowledge is not a requirement for all cybersecurity jobs, but there is some, and it can help really advance your career. So if you do have an interest in a specific area, so say, for example, network security, there are a range of courses and there are a range of degrees that do offer specifically tailored courses for network security, for example. Other roles like security engineers or penetration testers, these are the type of roles that we really do we really do look for that educational technical background. But however, there are a lot of other roles and a lot of other non-technical jobs, like network administration, for example, or vulnerability analysts or a cyber policy analyst, for example, that don't necessarily require that sound technical background. So, what I would suggest is really do your research into what area you would like that really sparks interest and excites you the most, and really figure out, what those requirements are to get your foot in that door.
Yeah, and I think that's really important to find out and research a little bit more about each company and about each role, because of course cybersecurity is such a large field, and what we're seeing here is really that it's a team sport, as Ray would put it, and I'm sure you can elaborate a little bit more on that. Also, Ray, are there any student programs at VMware that perhaps relate to this role?
As far as specific cyber roles with VMware, not to my knowledge at this point. I know VMware does run a lot of graduate programs. We have a lot of people come through. Typically early on, I think we would encourage most of them to have a broader, more generalist view. And I guess if there was one piece of advice I would have for anybody looking at cyber, I would try to keep a fairly broad view to begin with. And I think the larger companies like the banks or the telcos or the big four consulting places like a Deloitte, like a KPMG, you can join those kind of companies and get exposed to a lot of different things. And the industry is shifting pretty quickly. That question before about, focusing on network security, I guess I would ask, what is the network now? More and more, we are looking at organizations moving to software-defined networking, where all of your routing, your switching, your firewalls, all of that is done in software. and it's very dynamic, and it can often be at the per VM level. So just a simple question like that can take you in a number of different directions. And as far as do you need to be technical, I can tell you that not even the bad guys are necessarily all that technical. Unfortunately, one of the things that we've seen is the very sophisticated tooling that's often developed by nation states, developed by the likes of the NSA, the CIA, and a lot of people we'd like to call the bad guys. That tooling has trickled down through organised crime and has now got to the point where pretty much anybody who knows how to access the dark web can get their hands on that kind of sophisticated tooling and malware. Within an hour, if you know what you're doing, you can get onto the dark web and you can pay somebody to build you a brand new zero-day bit of malware and run a ransomware as a service campaign where they just take a percentage of whatever you happen to make in that campaign. It's really quite that simple. So the bad guys aren't necessarily any smarter or any more technical than us, but certainly the strategies, the infrastructure, the tooling, the solutions, and the programs that big companies put in place means that you don't really need to be, the rocket scientist. There are those people, absolutely. And if you want to be incredibly technical, cyber's a great place, but it's not a requirement. The other thing that I'd suggest is anybody who's interested, go and have a look at AISA, so the Australian Information Security Association, aisa.org.au. In terms of an industry body, they're really quite good. They run seminars, they run education sessions. I'm pretty sure they provide guidance for graduates and students as well. But AISA would be a great place to go and have a look. You find a lot of big companies in industry sponsor. I know NAB used to provide a facility for the AISA meetings. There's a chapter in every city. So that'd be worth having a look at as well for anybody who's interested.
Yeah, and Ray, we do just have a question that kind of leads on to what you were saying before. It's not so much career focused, but it's definitely about this whole bad guy, good guy sort of game. So in the past, we've had wars over land. Now there's talk over wars on data. Companies such as Cambridge Analytica have proven that this rise in data is of serious risk to both people and countries. How big a role does cybersecurity play in the prevention of this rise in data? Would you have anything to sort of elaborate on that?
Yeah, look, it's massive, and it happens at all levels too. Jodie's kind of area of specialty is around compliance and frameworks like GDPR and certainly all the privacy laws that we've got here is going to be a lot stronger than mine. But it goes from a corporate level around, what information a company can collect and then what they can use that for. So if you consent and provide your information to Telstra to get a phone plan, there's some fairly stringent rules around what they can and can't do with that data. They can't use it to market to you. They can't use it for a range of different things. So when an organisation collects your personal data, here in Australia at least, they're legally bound to only use it for what they've disclosed as part of collecting that in the first place. But if I go to the other end of the spectrum, I'm sure that there's a lot of people who'd be listening tonight that have got Siri turned on in the phone, or Alexa, or a smart speaker in their house, and use that for all sorts of things. Well, for devices like that, or for apps like TikTok, we give up an awful lot of personal information for the latest little app on a phone or for convenience. And I'd encourage people to think pretty hard about, do they really need that app, or how much are you prepared to sacrifice for that convenience? There's a few kind of well-published articles. I know even Hungry Jack's in the US and Burger King over there, they ran an advertising campaign where on TV, they called out, "Hey Google, what's a Whopper?" And all around the country, people's smart speakers were bursting into life because they had the, "Hey Siri" or "Hey Google." And it was reciting what a Whopper was, right? Well, that's been taken a step further with researchers now who've proven that they can embed within a YouTube video the commands to turn on the speaker on your device and potentially ask it to do things that are not audible to people. So they've proven in labs that you can turn your phone into, flight mode by people just watching a YouTube video. If you follow the press, there's lots of concerns about what happens with your data if you're a subscriber for TikTok. So I think we've all got a personal responsibility to think hard about what we're prepared to give up in order for that latest app or for convenience. And then at the other end of the spectrum, you've got, the privacy officer and really stringent privacy laws that are trying to protect our data. Because in a certain extent, it is the Wild West out there and people's data is valuable.
Yeah, just to piggyback off that and to sort of reinforce what you were saying, Ray, I guess from a customer perspective and as a software provider, privacy is a really super hot topic, and one of that sort of sparks a lot of fear in a lot of developers' minds when we are creating our products. And we often think, how can businesses stay compliant with new and fast, often changing regulations on the daily, right? What do these regulations tell us about shifting needs of customers, and where does the cloud fit into all these privacy conversations? And I guess from an Atlassian perspective, we have somewhat of a unique model where we have both individuals and companies that use our platform. Sometimes individuals own their own accounts independently, and other times the company owns their own accounts, I guess in a more traditional enterprise model perspective. And so we have to think a lot about what data is appropriate for the individual to control versus what data should be controlled by the administrators. And I think our teams here have done a really good job of deconstructing that in a way that makes sense for our tools to cross collaborate. And this year we in particular users will actually see a lot more control over what data and profile elements they share in what spaces, and how they can delete their own personal data. And similarly, admins will have a lot more control. So, we're really moving towards giving that ownership and that right, to our customers so that they have that choice.
Yeah, and I think that's really relevant, this whole thing of who owns what data and what data are we giving out as well. And that was also established by Ray before, in the way that I know that especially us, the next generation of people, we put a lot of information online, whether it be through social media or other methods. So it's definitely an interesting field to look at, the way these sort of blurred lines in terms of who owns what and the ownership of data. Do you own the data that you put out, or does someone else own the data that you put out? That kind of dynamic there. Just for Anfisa and Jodie to sort of jump on this, there's a question as well. I was just wondering what new products for companies. Does it involve think tanks or something similar? Sort of elaborate on that. What the process is behind creating these cybersecurity products for companies.
Sorry, Shinodi, I think your connection's a little bit slow because I can't seem to hear the question. Could you please repeat that?
Oh, my bad. I'll repeat it. I can, yes. So what's the process of creating new cybersecurity products for companies? What does it sort of involve? Is it think tanks or something similar? Am I cutting off still?
I got the question, maybe I'll lead off. So just to repeat for everybody else, the question was around how do organisations go about cybersecurity products? Are they think tanks? What's the process behind it? Look, I think in recent years, there's obviously an awful lot of venture capital funding that goes into trying to develop things that are spawned out of research projects fundamentally. Topics like AI and machine learning, there's all sorts of interesting applications for that. And as I think I mentioned before, there's something in the order of 3,500 different security vendors. I don't think that's helping. I think that's adding to the problem. It results in very fragmented security architectures that are difficult to maintain, have lots of gaps. So the trend that we're seeing emerging now is trying to leverage what you already have in place in terms of your infrastructure. And that can be infrastructure that either you run in a data center or it's on, you know, AWS infrastructure or Google Cloud or Azure, whatever your public cloud provider is. And we're trying to instrument and build security in rather than bolt it on. It's the only way we get more insight and more context around what it is that we're trying to secure in the first place. So whilst there's been lots of interesting tech developed, we're seeing a big consolidation in the industry, little companies being bought up by bigger companies. And really the focus is about how do we make sure security is built in from the ground up and a part of everything we do in terms of the people, the process and the technology, rather than something we tack on at the end. Because that's what the industry's been guilty of, right? People or organizations went out and built data centers or bought, you know, into cloud strategies, often before they understood all of the apps that a business wanted to run. We then build a whole lot of applications on that infrastructure. And then just before it's about to go live, somebody says to the security team, hey, do you want to make that safe and secure? That approach just doesn't work anymore, which is why I don't think it'll matter what part of business or IT you guys move into. There will be a flavor of cybersecurity in there somewhere, because we have to get better at building things in from the ground up rather than trying to bolt them on at the end.
Yeah, Ray, there's another question for you. You mentioned earlier that baselining is important to understand the known good. Could you explain this in more detail, and how can we implement this in our own homes now that we're all working from home?
Yeah, sure. So what we mean by baselining is understanding what an intended state of an application should be. So we want to know that the applications that a business has running are functioning as they were designed to in the first place. So if I have a look at Atlassian, you know, a big fan of their products, and I've used Jira and a bunch of other products over my career. When that infrastructure is all deployed and the team at Atlassian are managing that, they've got a very fixed pattern of how that infrastructure should be provisioned, what it should look like. When they get a sudden burst in you know, user load and they have to on demand, you know, expand in public cloud and spin up that infrastructure, scale it out. There's very fixed and defined patterns around what good should look like, about how that should function and what it should be doing. If you see a rogue process that's running there that is not one that's by design part of that solution, that'd be a really bad thing. So what I mean by baselining is trying to understand all the way from our DevOps. So if you're familiar with the terms continual development, continuous integration, when we are building product and we are deploying that, we know what it should look like in a deployed state. We should have security solutions that know how to monitor when that deviates from that planned good state. And that's what I mean by we should focus more inwardly on what we do understand. To give you an analogy, if you've got, you know, something that's precious or meaningful or, you know, jewelry or whatever you keep at home, you keep it in a safe place. You know, it might be in an old, you know, biscuit tin in the bottom drawer or hidden in a wardrobe or whatever it is. The bad guys don't know where that is, right? You know where it is. You make all reasonable efforts to try and protect that. You're the only one who knows where that's kept and in which room of the house and how you secure it. In cyber, we haven't traditionally tackled things the same way. We've tried to bolt all of these controls on around the outside, and really we've proven that it just introduces too much complexity, too much work, too much effort. So when I talk about baselining, it's understanding how things should be deployed and should function, and then looking at deviations from that. That's a little bit difficult to do in a home user context, but you should find that whoever provides you the infrastructure, the laptops, the tools that you work with, they will understand what good looks like. When they see a new application or something rogue that's all of a sudden appeared, they'll know that that's in all likelihood bad. So it will trickle down in terms of your end user compute devices. In terms of your own personal infrastructure, you know, phones and laptops and things, it's a little harder. But, you know, Apple as an operating system goes a long way towards testing and validating that the apps you download are safe. You know, that's one example. You know, the apps on an iPhone are pretty well contained. If you look at a jailbroken Android phone, all bets are off. So there's certain things you can do around trying to maintain a known good state.
Yeah, for sure. Just before we do wrap up the session, time definitely does fly. Are there any words of advice that any of you could sort of give students who are interested in this field? Perhaps some resources they can look up, just general feedback. Jodie?
Oh, I could talk about this all night. General feedback. So, where do I begin? So, you know, there is an abundance of resources online, and I think if there's something to sort of take away from tonight is that cybersecurity is not going anywhere. If anything, we're just going to get bigger, we're going to get stronger, and the problem, I guess, what we're sort of currently facing in this day and age is that, you know, many companies are facing that they have limited resources and headcount, and whilst things like automation can improve security, it still takes talented and skilled individuals to review things like incidences and decision making and taking action. You know, businesses should be facilitating and enticing a workforce that can work from any capital, any region, anywhere in the world. And, you know, given where we are currently situated in terms of COVID and how everyone is currently working from home at the moment, you will see that the job prospects in the cybersecurity industry are just going to explode, because gone are the days where you now have to traditionally go into an office and work. You can now basically work anywhere you want around the world for a company. So if you do see a job, you know, on LinkedIn or on Seek, you know, ask the question, do I need to be in this location? Do I need to have, you know, do I need to have this, or do I need to have that? You know, these are some really important questions that are going to either make you decide whether you want to choose to go for that job or not. But probably the best piece of advice that I can give anyone is, don't second guess on applying for a job. If you look at a job description and you see there's 10 things that you need and you've only got 2 or 3, go for it. There's absolutely nothing wrong with you applying for that job, because what you're doing is you're putting yourself in front of the employers, and you're putting yourself in front of them and going, I am here, I want this job, and I'm ready to tackle this job. And, you know, a great attitude is better than any skill out there. If you've got the right mind and if you've got the right attitude, you will most definitely succeed in your career. So, you know, I you know, if anyone wants any advice or anything in relation to career advice, you know, please feel free to reach out to me. I'd be more than happy to support you all.
I'm sure a lot of people would take up on that offer, Jodie. But no, thank you very much for that word of advice. Anfisa, did you just want to say a couple words as well in terms of some advice that you would give fellow students?
I would just say, do not focus right now on what exactly you want to do. Like, don't stress on it too much, because as soon as you join industry, you will find out way more things that you can't find online. Not because they're not online, but because you can't even imagine how broad it is. So don't stress yourself over, oh, I want to do, for example, network security, and then you just research on network security, because there are lots of branches, there are lots of teams, lots of ways. So if cybersecurity interests you, just research on major trends, or look through the news, see which tools are popular, maybe start learning on some different tools, but don't stress over what exactly you want to do. You don't have to make a decision right now. People change their place all the time. Maybe you'll start off as network security, then you'll go to identity management, and then you will join cloud security. So just don't limit yourself. Know that there are heaps of options, and they will be always available, and you can change your path anytime.
Yeah, and I think that's really reassuring for people who definitely are still confused on what they want to do. I think a lot of misconceptions are that at university you sort of need to know what you want to do. But of course, a lot of industry experience can ultimately lead you to where you're supposed to be. So with that note, I will just hand over to Aditi. It's been amazing being your MC, and I hope you have enjoyed your stay here today. But yes, I will hand over to Aditi for a little vote of thanks.
Hi everyone. So my name's Aditi and I'm the President of Cca. What a great conversation. As someone that's really new to cybersecurity, it was absolutely incredible to hear more about how we can get involved. I'm really interested in how humans interact with technology and the decisions they make. So it was really interesting to hear more about how, the way we think and what's going on around us is impacting the way companies are dealing with security. Jodie, Ray, and Anfisa, thank you all so much for joining us today. I know you're all extremely busy, so we really appreciate it. It was really great to hear 3 unique and diverse perspectives into the world of cybersecurity. Each of you had something different to add, and the conversation overall was just really great. While I'm doing thank yous, thank you to Atlassian, VMware, and NAB for your support, not just for this event, but in the past and hopefully in the future as well. Chimodi, thank you for being an amazing MC. One of the things about joining clubs and societies is that you get to learn from the people around you and other committee members. Today was an example of that. I not only learnt from our panelists, but also from Chimodi about her insights as well. Jono, Tharun, Ivan, everyone behind the scenes, this couldn't have happened without you. So thank you. And finally, we're really focused on diversity in technology. It's something that we are extremely passionate about and something that we strive to raise awareness about every year. In a couple of weeks, we do have an event with Telstra where we'll be taking a look into women in technology. It'll be a career pathways panel discussion followed by a workshop, which is also being run and emceed by Chimodi. So if you want to hear a little bit more from her or want to learn more about pathways for you, do join us. It's not exclusive to just females, it's open for everyone. So I hope to see you all there. And thank you to everyone again for attending.